Hello, for my presentation today, I will be discussing rising sea levels. So, to kick us off, we will start with topics. So, for topics for today include a fundamental understanding of what rising sea levels are, the causes, the effects that it brings, adaptations that can be put in place as a quick fix, projections of future sea levels, and long term solutions that can be put into place to fix the problem. So, our first topic is what it is. And in the simplest definition for what rising sea level means is it refers to the overall volume of ocean water. Now, there are two types of sea level rise. There are global mean sea level rise and relative sea level change. Global, global sea level rise is most linked to climate change. It is considered a worldwide increase and compared to a fixed point, such as the center of the Earth. And relative sea level change is how high the land is considered when it is compared to land in specific areas. So these measurements can be impacted by the water rising or the land sinking. Next up, we have causes. So in this section, there are global causes and local causes. For global causes, these include things such as melting ice and thermal expansion. And then when we get into why these things increase sea levels, it's because melting ice adds more water to the oceans, and thermal expansion increases the levels because when the water gets warmer, it ends up taking more space. And then for local causes, these things include tectonic shifts and groundwater pumping and things like that. So, as far as these things go, tectonic shifts increase the levels because if the ocean floor ends up sinking, it will push the water towards the land, which increases the measurements. And groundwater also adds to the increase by taking the water that is underground, which usually results in it ending up in oceans and rivers, which will eventually begin to increase the levels as well. Now, as far as effects go, um, sea levels don't only affect things such as from a geographic standpoint, such as extreme weather and flooding, land loss, saltwater intrusion, and freshwater contamination. It can also have an economic effect and social effect. So, rising sea levels can also have a negative economic impact by destroying infrastructure and reducing the amount of business these land areas see. And rising levels can also mean people are leaving their homes, which also has a negative and societal impact and contributes to the economic standpoint as well. Now, there is some adaptations that can be put in place. Some of the ideas for them are seawalls, elevated roads and water pumps, beach nourishment, improved drainage systems, and living shores. So, to kind of get more into what these things are, seawalls are essentially barriers that protect the land from the ocean. They can be built out of concrete, steel, or stone, and they are placed around the coast, which prevents waves from crashing into the land, which then prevents things like corrosion and flooding. And elevated roads and water pumps are what they sound like. They are built off the ground to be protected from water. Beach nourishment, I think, is actually pretty cool. It's when we add more sand to the worn down beaches to protect the coast and make the beaches wider. The sand is usually taken from the bottom of the ocean. And I just like that because it's a sustainable way to do things. And yeah, we can also improve drainage systems by adding more pipes, maintaining them more regularly, and even installing smart systems that control water flow in real time. And lastly, living shores is use of vegetation to stabilize the shoreline and reduce erosion over time. The vegetation can do things like prevent soil from washing away, absorb wave energy, and even provide more habitat for wildlife. Now, these are quick fixes, so they're kind of more so cover ups to the actual problem than going and trying to fix the root of the problem, but they are still things that we can do, which is better than nothing. As far as projections go for the future, I have a stat about how sea levels will continue to rise in the next couple of decades. By 2050, the coastline is expected to rise 10 to 12 inches. This is worrisome because the effects that are listed in one of the previous slides, um, those will only continue to get worse if we don't do something about it. And lastly, I have solutions. Now, I have a list of solutions which include global action, education about the problem through community outreach, innovative engineering, and mitigating climate change. These are solutions that will take longer to implement, but will get us closer to fixing the problem rather than just masking it like the adaptations kind of would have. And for my conclusion, I have overall rising sea levels continue to be a problem that we will continue to need to fight. There are multiple areas for change to be made, and even though it will take a while, I believe we can fix this problem and the effects that it causes. Thanks for listening to my presentation.